the ocean does not announce danger. It waits, vast and silent, until there is nowhere left to go. For one man, this silence became a sentence, measured not in miles, but in days without rescue. It began as an ordinary day, the kind built from habit, confidence, and the false belief that the sea would remain predictable. Years of repetition had trained his body to trust the motions, even when the future beyond the horizon remained unseen. The warning arrived quietly, carried by shifting clouds and subtle winds, easy to ignore when confidence still outweighed caution. The sea began to change its rhythm, subtle at first, as if testing whether the man aboard was paying attention. When the engine faltered, routine collapsed instantly, leaving skill and instinct to replace every failed mechanism. The engine's silence marked the moment when skill alone was no longer enough, and the sea assumed complete authority. With no power left to argue, the boat surrendered to the current, and the man aboard began to understand his insignificance.
As night arrived, the sea erased the horizon, leaving him suspended in darkness.
In the absence of light, the mind fills the void, turning every sound into a question and every movement into a threat. Sleep became dangerous, not a refuge, as exhaustion fought fear in a body that could not afford to let go. Morning returned with clarity and fear, forcing him to measure survival not in days, but in what little remained. Every decision now carried weight, as survival shifted from chance to calculation, measured by restraint instead of hope. With no shelter to hide beneath, the sun claimed its share, draining strength hour by hour without mercy. When the water ran out, survival narrowed to a single question: how long the body could endure without what it needed most. The rain arrived without promise, offering relief measured not in comfort, but in minutes of life regained. Hunger sharpened his instincts, and the sea, indifferent yet abundant, offered sustenance without ceremony. Hunger erased hesitation, teaching him that survival does not wait for comfort, permission, or dignity. Food steadied the body, but the mind remained adrift, restless in the silence where thoughts grew louder than waves. Days lost their names, replaced by routine, as survival became less a struggle and more a relentless pattern. As days repeated without markers, time lost meaning, dissolving into a single, endless stretch of waiting. Without rest or change, the mind began to dull, struggling to stay sharp in a world that no longer shifted. The horizon began to waver, not from the sea, but from a mind struggling to separate reality from exhaustion. In the silence, his mind began to invent sounds, faint echoes where none existed, simply to escape being alone. The mind created company where none existed, filling the void with a presence that felt real enough to acknowledge. With no one left to answer, he spoke without sound, discovering that the mind will invent conversation to avoid collapse. The body began to fail faster than the mind could adapt, revealing the true cost of endurance in an unforgiving place. In the dark, exhaustion blurred into doubt, and survival became less about strength than the will to continue. With daylight came a choice, not born of hope, but of refusal to surrender to the sea. He learned to move less, waste nothing, and survive through efficiency, turning endurance into a practiced routine. Days began to collapse into one another, stripped of meaning, until survival felt suspended outside of time. With no one to recognize him, even his reflection began to feel unfamiliar, as if identity itself were dissolving. Without words spoken or heard, language began to thin, and time faded into a single, endless present. Sleep and waking merged, until reality softened, and the mind began to drift even while the body remained awake. In his weakened state, the mind offered false landmarks, illusions convincing enough to momentarily awaken hope. When the vision dissolved, it took hope with it, leaving behind a deeper emptiness than the sea itself. Survival continued without feeling, driven by habit alone, as emotion withdrew to protect what remained of the mind.
Hunger hollowed him from the inside, stripping the body to its essentials and threatening to shut it down entirely. At the edge of collapse, survival narrowed to breath alone, each one a quiet decision to remain alive. As the body neared its limit, the sky shifted again, reminding him that the sea could still give as easily as it took.
The rain did not save him, but it delayed death, restoring just enough strength for the body to continue. The body recovered just enough to repeat what it knew, returning to routine not from hope, but necessity.
Weeks turned into months, and the world he remembered grew distant, replaced by a life shaped entirely by water and routine.
By then, survival no longer required thought. His body responded before the mind could question why. Tools were no longer necessary. Hunger had refined his movements into something faster than thought. Something appeared at the edge of vision, unfamiliar yet undeniable, forcing the question he had long abandoned. The shape did not fade. It held its place, steady and unmoving, proving that this time the world was real.
Survival did not end at the sight of land. It demanded one final endurance as the body threatened to fail.